Hey guys. My name is Emma and I'm 27 years old. Honestly, I never thought I'd be sitting here telling this story, but it's too crazy, too heartbreaking, and, yeah, kind of infuriating not to share it. It all started with what was supposed to be a beautiful family reunion. My parents are divorced, but once a year somehow they still manage to coordinate this big get-together, bringing everyone together. My siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles. The whole works. It's always awkward and a little exhausting, but there's this sense of belonging that's comforting. Or at least that's what I told myself. My older brother, Ryan, and I have always had a complicated relationship. He's charming, the favorite child, and always seemed to glide through life without consequences. Me. I worked hard, saved up, tried to be responsible. That's just who I am. But I always wanted his approval, or maybe just to be treated like I mattered. The reunion this year was at our dad's lake house, a place filled with nostalgia. Photos of summer trips plastered on walls, the smell of grilled food in the air, and laughter that felt forced in some corners. I arrived a few hours early, helping set up, chopping vegetables, arranging drinks. You know, the usual good daughter stuff. I wore a casual but cute outfit, a soft cream sweater, blue jeans and boots. My friends would have called it low-key chic, but I wasn't trying to impress anyone except maybe myself. When people arrived, hugs were exchanged, awkward smiles lingered, and as always, the usual small talk began. Then came my brother Ryan, and his wife Melissa. Melissa has always been, I don't know, polished. She's the type that knows exactly when to laugh, when to compliment, and how to casually make herself seem indispensable. I never disliked her, but I never connected with her either. She's one of those people who could light up a room, but it always feels like it's at your expense. Emma, you look gorgeous, she chimed when she saw me. Thanks, I smiled, meaning it. I wasn't competing, I just wanted to be seen. My brother winked at me from across the room, then smirked when he caught my eye. Looking good, kiddo, he said loud enough for everyone to hear, but with that half-teasing tone that always stung. I forced a laugh. Thanks, Ryan. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of introductions, gossip, and forced smiles. Plates were filled and emptied, drinks refilled, and cousins swapped embarrassing childhood stories that were met with groans and laughter. But underneath it all, I could feel this subtle hierarchy at play. People gravitated toward Ryan and Melissa. They had the best stories, the funniest jokes, the easiest confidence. Me. I smiled, helped clean up, and let myself drift in the background. Still, I told myself, it's family. It'll be fine. That night, after most people had gone to bed, I sat by the lake, staring at the dark water. Fireflies danced above the reeds, and I could hear the faint murmur of voices from inside the house. My phone buzzed with texts from friends, but I ignored them. I felt off. The next morning started bright with pancakes and fresh coffee, but things quickly unraveled. At brunch, I sat next to my brother Ryan. He kept checking his phone. He barely looked at me. When I asked if he was tired, he just shrugged. Busy, he said. I smiled weakly and turned back to my plate. After the meal, people started packing up. Goodbyes were rushed. Hugs were half-hearted. I thought I'd linger, maybe spend some quiet time before heading back to my apartment. That's when it happened. I was scrolling through my banking app on my phone, just to make sure I hadn't forgotten any automatic payments or something. I checked my balance and my breath caught. It was nearly empty. I froze. I refreshed the page. Still empty. I sat there for a full minute, not knowing what to do. My heart pounded in my ears. What the hell? I checked recent transactions. There was large withdrawals, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 at a time, all within the last 24 hours. My stomach twisted. I couldn't believe it. I scrolled again, searching for explanations. A few payments to online shops I didn't recognize. A transfer that drained nearly everything in my account. I felt sick. I ran inside. Mom. I cried, practically bursting into the kitchen where my mom was packing leftovers. My bank account, it's empty. I don't understand how, what the hell is going on? She looked up, startled. What do you mean empty? I mean, it's gone. All of it. I pulled out my phone and showed her the transaction history. Her eyes went wide. Emma, she whispered. Oh my God. Who would do this? I screamed. How does this even happen? I didn't share my details with anyone. Before she could answer, I felt eyes on me. Ryan was standing by the door. His face was blank at first. Then he chuckled. A short, sharp snort. Like something deliciously wicked. I froze. We needed it more, he muttered, barely above a whisper. But it was enough. The room fell silent. The air around me felt like ice. My mom's face drained of color. I looked at my brother, stunned. What? I whispered. What did you just say? He shrugged, his smirk growing. Come on, Em. It's just money. You've got more coming. We needed it more than you. I stared at him, speechless. In that moment, something inside me shattered. That's where the story really began. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. But something cold, quiet, and determined filled me. Because that was betrayal. Not the money. It was that my own brother, someone I grew up with, someone I thought I could trust, would do this. It was then I decided I wouldn't let it go. So yeah, after I saw my account wiped out and after Ryan's smug little comment, we needed it more, I couldn't breathe. It felt like I was watching a nightmare play out in front of me, but I couldn't wake up. My hands were shaking and my throat felt tight like I'd swallowed ice cubes. For a minute I just stood there staring at him. You're kidding, right? I croaked. He didn't even flinch. Come on, Em, he said, rolling his eyes like I was being dramatic. We're family. You wouldn't even miss it. You're always so responsible. You probably have backup anyway. That one sentence cut deeper than anything. I wanted to scream. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to throw every plate in that kitchen and watch it smash across the floor. But something inside me just shut down. I walked out before I said anything else. That whole day felt like a blur. Everyone pretended nothing was wrong, like they didn't see my face go pale or my hands tremble. My mom tried to hug me, but I gently pulled away. I didn't want to cry in front of her. Not yet. I needed space to think. By the time I got back to my apartment, I locked the door behind me, pulled my laptop out, and began to piece things together. I checked the transaction details again, reading every word. There were withdrawals from ATMs near the lake house. There were transfers to businesses and accounts I didn't recognize. But one of them caught my eye. A small boutique gift shop in the next town over. I clicked on it. The name, Lux Finds. I froze. Something about it nagged at me. I quickly typed the name into Google Maps. The store popped up, and it was right across from a coffee shop I knew Ryan and Melissa frequented. My stomach sank. I didn't want to believe it. But curiosity won. The next day I drove over. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I parked a block away and walked around the corner. There was a small, trendy shop with curated home decor and knickknacks. Exactly the type of place someone wanting to seem sophisticated and above it all would frequent. I peered inside. And that's when I saw them. Melissa, my brother's wife, and the store's owner, and someone else. A man. A tall guy with dark hair wearing a leather jacket, laughing with Melissa like he'd known her forever. They weren't being subtle. They were leaning in close. Their eyes locked. Their hands intertwined. I stood frozen in place. My breath caught in my throat. This wasn't some innocent coffee run. This wasn't some casual shopping trip. They were together. My heart felt like it had been ripped out of my chest. I sat in my car for almost an hour before I dared move. I kept replaying what I saw. My brain kept telling me it was some misunderstanding, but deep down I knew. I called my best friend Rachel. I need to tell you something, but you can't freak out. Emma, you're scaring me. It's Ryan and Melissa, I whispered. Oh my God, she breathed. I told her everything. This isn't just about money, is it? She asked after a pause. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. No, I whispered. It's more. She didn't say anything for a while. You okay? No, I admitted. But I'm going to fix it. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept going back to all the memories I had growing up with Ryan. The late night talks, the secrets we shared, the promises to always have each other's backs. It was all fake. Or maybe he never meant it. I pulled up photos from past family vacations. There he was, smiling beside me in one, whispering in another, wrapping an arm around my shoulder. The betrayal felt physical. The next morning I decided to dig deeper. I called the bank's fraud department. The representative was sympathetic but blunt. "We can't reverse everything," she said gently, "but if you report it now we can freeze the account and track the transactions." I filed the report immediately. Then I went through my emails and messages, trying to find where my card information might have been compromised. Nothing suspicious popped up. That's when I realized, this had to be inside help. Someone had my details. Someone I trusted. The final piece came when I saw Melissa's social media. Scrolling through her Instagram felt like sifting through lies. Pictures of smiling family dinners, weekend getaways, and inspirational quotes like, "Family is everything." But then, in a tagged photo, I caught a glimpse of the same man from the boutique. The leather jacket guy, his hand lightly touching hers. The comments underneath were playful, flirty. People had noticed. Melissa had ignored it. I sat there staring at my phone. "So this is what love looks like to them," I whispered. By the time I pieced everything together, the truth was undeniable. My account had been drained by someone who had access to my information. Ryan and Melissa had planned it. The withdrawals coincided with the times they went shopping. Melissa's affair with another man was ongoing. They weren't just hiding it, they were flaunting it. And somehow, laughing about it. I felt sick. But I also felt something else. A spark. A burning need, not for revenge in the dramatic sense but for justice. I wasn't going to let them walk away laughing. I wasn't going to let them destroy my life and act like nothing happened. I knew I had to act carefully. I knew I couldn't confront them head-on. Because that's what they wanted, to see me fall apart. That's how it all started. The betrayal discovery wasn't a single event. It was like uncovering layers of deceit, each one more painful than the last. And I knew I had to be smarter than they were. That's when I began planning. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to plan something like this. I always believed in forgiveness, in second chances, in family standing together no matter what. But when you find out the people closest to you are the ones stabbing you in the back, when you realize your trust has been stolen and your identity violated, it's not about being good anymore. It's about survival. It's about making sure they understand that hurting you comes with consequences. For days I felt like I was drowning in my own thoughts. I'd wake up gasping for air, heart racing like I'd just run a marathon. I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, imagining confrontations I could never actually go through without blowing everything. But alongside the pain, a part of me felt alive. It's hard to explain. It's like even in the darkness I could see the path forward. I started journaling. I needed to map everything out before I made a move. On the first page I wrote, "What did they take from me?" I stared at that question for a long time. Was it money? Yes. Was it trust? Absolutely. Was it family? More than anything. Then I wrote, "What do they think they've done?" That question shook me harder. They thought I was blind. That I wouldn't notice. That I wouldn't care. That because I was always calm, always supportive, I turned the other cheek. I stared at those words. No, not this time. I needed details. I printed out my bank statements and highlighted every suspicious transaction. I wrote down dates, locations, amounts. I looked up Lux Finds, memorized its address, its business hours. I traced Melissa's social media, screenshotting photos, messages, and comments. I documented everything like evidence for a case. Not because I wanted to go to court, but because I wanted to feel control again. But more than documentation, I needed to plan. I needed to know how to hurt them without letting it backfire on me. The moment I decided revenge was necessary, I began building a strategy. I made 3 rules for myself. Stay calm. No impulsive actions that would give them an advantage. Gather information. Know everything before acting. Make it personal but indirect. They must feel the pain, but I can't let it destroy me. At first, I kept it in the back of my mind. I pretended I was just trying to move on. But every time I saw Ryan laugh with Melissa at family gatherings, every time I watched them exchanging looks that told me everything without saying a word, my blood boiled. One night, after another event where everyone acted normal and pretended nothing happened, I came home and cried until I couldn't breathe. I curled up on the couch and buried my face in a blanket. I whispered into the dark. "You'll see, Melissa. You'll see what it feels like to lose everything you thought you owned." That night, something shifted inside me. I realized this wasn't about being petty anymore. It was about reclaiming my dignity. The next few weeks were all about preparation. I started small. I asked my bank for transaction alerts. I set up automatic notifications anytime my accounts were accessed. I even changed passwords, canceled cards, and took steps to ensure I wouldn't be blindsided again. But the bigger plan needed patience. I watched their routines. I noted when they left town together, when they stayed late at restaurants, when they were careless. Melissa's affair had grown reckless, her phone lighting up constantly, texts from someone saved under fake names. Ryan wasn't innocent either. He'd start disappearing for hours without explanation. It was like they wanted me to find out. One day I followed them. It felt sick, but I couldn't stop. I stayed 2 blocks away as they drove to Lux Finds. I saw them walk in, their hands grazing each other as if they couldn't stay apart. I stayed until they left, scribbling down every detail. I even went so far as to call the boutique under the guise of being a customer. "Do you have any private appointments?" I asked casually. The shopkeeper laughed. "Oh, you mean when Melissa's here?" she whispered, eyes wide with amusement. It hit me like a slap. Everyone knew. They didn't even bother hiding it anymore. That's when I realized something else. They didn't fear being caught. They didn't care. They thought I'd crumble. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. I wouldn't confront them at all. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. I would build something bigger than their lies. I would make them feel powerless. And I'd do it in ways they never expected. I started collecting allies. I reached out quietly to my friends. "If I told you something crazy, would you help me?" "Of course, Em. You know that," Rachel replied without hesitation. I also began networking with people Melissa barely knew, women who had been wronged, who understood betrayal. Slowly my circle grew. Then I began planting seeds. Without revealing my full plan, I whispered doubts, triggered their paranoia. At family dinners, I would ask pointed questions without naming names. Funny how some people always find an excuse to be away when others are around. They'd stiffen. I'd smile. And all the while I stayed composed. No tears. No outbursts. Just quiet observation. They didn't suspect I was watching. They didn't suspect I was building something bigger. That's when the thrill of it started to creep in. It wasn't enough to simply expose them. I wanted them to feel the fear I felt. I wanted them to lose sleep, to question every move, to watch their perfect facade crumble. At the end of one long week, as I sat in my apartment journaling, I wrote, "The next step starts soon. They think they've won. But they've only set themselves up." I knew revenge wasn't about instant gratification. It was about timing. It was about hitting where it hurts most. And I wasn't going to stop until they learned exactly what betrayal feels like. So that's where I was. At the edge of something bigger. At the brink of taking back everything they thought they stole from me. This is where it all got real. For months I had been planning, watching, waiting, and now finally it was time. I had to be smart. I had to be subtle. I had to hit them where it hurt, but without ever getting caught. The worst part was, part of me felt like I was becoming someone I never thought I could be. But at that point it didn't matter. I didn't want them to see it coming. And trust me, they never did. The first move was psychological. At the next family gathering, I arrived with a calm smile. I was warm. I was composed. That's when I started. I sat next to my mother and casually asked, "Have you ever thought some people only show up when it's convenient for them?" Her eyes flicked toward Melissa before she smiled awkwardly. "What do you mean?" I shrugged innocently. Just wondering aloud. That night I texted a few family members cryptic things. To my cousin Claire. "Some people are acting real fake these days. You noticed?" To my Uncle Dave. "Funny how quickly loyalties shift. Crazy, right?" Within 24 hours I started seeing tension everywhere. Eyes darting. Forced smiles. Whispered conversations when I walked by. It was intoxicating. Next I knew I needed something that would cut deeper. I dug through Melissa's social media again and found old posts, flirty comments, emojis, tagged photos with Ryan that she thought only close friends would see. I downloaded them, organized them, and created a file titled "For the Family." I didn't send it immediately. Instead, I crafted a message. Sometimes you have to see the truth in front of you to realize what's been hiding in plain sight. I printed copies and mailed them anonymously to key family members. Aunts, uncles, even my father. The next weekend, I sat in the living room while chaos slowly unfolded. My mother cried quietly. My uncle's jaw clenched. Ryan kept avoiding my eyes. Melissa's forced smile cracked every time she thought someone was watching. That was the first time I knew I was breaking them. But money was where it really hurt. It wasn't about being rich. It was about making them feel the emptiness they created. I waited until Melissa had posted about a girls' trip to Miami. That's when I moved. With the help of a friend working in finance, I anonymously reported suspicious activity on Ryan's business account. The bank flagged it. The account was temporarily frozen. Ryan called me later that week, panicked. Do you know anything? I can't access anything, he whispered. I smiled softly. Oh no. I hope everything's okay. I knew he didn't suspect me. Good. Then I made another move. I used old loyalty points, signed up with fake names, and drained Melissa's personal account by purchasing expensive gifts, designer bags, spa treatments, flights. Every time she posted, I'd send anonymous delivery confirmations to her inbox. At first she panicked. Then she started deleting posts. Then she stopped posting altogether. That silence, that fear, was more satisfying than I could explain. I knew isolation was the next step. If they couldn't trust the people around them, they'd spiral. I invited family members to a private dinner at my place, one where Melissa and Ryan weren't welcome. When questioned, I smiled. It's just a girls' night. I thought it'd be nice. But the message was clear. The ones they counted on were slowly drifting away. I reached out to old friends they hadn't seen in years and subtly reminded them of past wrongdoings. I made sure every conversation ended with, "You deserve better." They started being left out. Invitations stopped arriving at their door. Their world was shrinking. After months of building pressure, I decided it was time for the final blow. I invited Melissa and Ryan to dinner. I knew they'd say yes. They never suspected I'd call them at all. They arrived smiling, awkward, dressed up, and pretending everything was fine. I welcomed them with open arms. "I'm so glad you both could make it," I said sweetly. As we sat down, I served their favorite wine. Ryan raised his glass. "To family," he said, trying to be charming. I smiled back but didn't raise my glass. "Family," I echoed quietly. We ate. We talked. I kept everything light, like nothing was wrong. Then, just as dessert was served, I stood up and pulled out a folder. Everyone went quiet. I looked at them, smiled, and handed it to my mother. "Just some paperwork I thought you'd want to see." The room froze. My mother opened it first. Her eyes scanned the pages. Gasps echoed. Faces turned white. Ryan's hand trembled. Melissa's lips parted but no sound came out. The folder contained everything. Screenshots of texts, bank reports, flight itineraries, receipts, everything. I stood tall. "I didn't want to believe it either," I said softly. "But sometimes seeing is believing." Melissa's eyes filled with tears. Ryan looked like he wanted to disappear. For the first time they realized they were exposed. I could have stopped there. I could have let them suffer. But I wanted them to feel it every day. So I made sure to contact a local charity that worked with families rebuilding after financial abuse. I anonymously donated money in Ryan's name. I made sure the press release mentioned that the funds were from someone close to him. I wanted the world to know they weren't the perfect family they pretended to be. Then I moved. I put my name on the family business. I took over. With the support of the relatives who had drifted away, I cleaned up the finances, reinstated trust, and rebuilt the reputation that Ryan and Melissa had torn apart. And when they came crawling back, I didn't pick up. The moment I felt power again. That night, after everything unfolded, I sat alone on my couch. The apartment was quiet. The house felt empty but peaceful. For the first time in months, I slept without nightmares. I had taken back control. I had shown them that betrayal has consequences. And most importantly, I had done it on my terms. But if you're thinking I felt joy the entire time, I didn't. There were moments I cried. Moments I wanted to give up. Moments when I wondered if I was becoming cold, if I'd lost myself. But at the end of the day, I knew one thing. I stood up for myself. And I made sure they knew they couldn't play me for a fool. That's where it stands. I'm not saying revenge is the answer for everyone. But sometimes, when the people closest to you tear your world apart, you have to decide whether you crumble or rise. I chose to rise. And I made sure they'll never forget it. It's been a little over a year since everything came crashing down. And honestly, life hasn't been easy, but it's been real. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. After that night, after I handed that folder over, I didn't sleep for days. I kept replaying every look, every gasp, every tear. There were moments when guilt wrapped around me like a heavy blanket. I asked myself, am I too harsh? Did I go too far? But every time I thought that, I reminded myself why I started. They had betrayed trust. They had acted selfishly. They didn't think about the consequences of their actions. Not for me, not for our family. I decided that if I was going to fight back, I had to do it completely, not halfway, not with excuses. The days after the confrontation were tense. Some family members were hesitant to reach out. Some avoided me altogether, fearing I'd expose more. But slowly something beautiful happened. People started coming back. Not because they felt sorry for me, but because they saw strength. I rebuilt friendships. I reconnected with people I hadn't spoken to in years. I took over parts of the family business that had been neglected and turned them around. It felt empowering. For the first time, I wasn't just someone's sister, someone's niece, someone's daughter. I was me. It wasn't long before Melissa and Ryan tried to reconnect. It started with texts, carefully worded, apologetic. We miss you. We never meant to hurt you. Can we talk? I read them. I let them sit there for days before responding. And when I did, I kept it short. You made your choices. I'm making mine. They reached out again, begging to explain, to make amends. I almost broke. But then I thought of every night I lay awake wondering if this was my fault. I thought of every tear shed silently. I thought of how easily they tossed me aside. I closed the door, not out of spite but out of self-respect. What I learned. Here's the biggest lesson I want to share. You don't have to tolerate betrayal.